Adetomiwa Adebayo is the number 60 player on my big board and my 11th ranked edge rusher in this class. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school with a track and field background, where he actually set a record for shot put in the state of Kansas in high school. At Northwestern, he was a 3-year starter. He is 6'2", 282 pounds, 22 years old. He ran a 4.49 40 at the combine, had a 37.5-inch vertical leap, and had a very good bench press score. He's very small, 4th percentile, but he's 87th percentile weight, had a 97th percentile 40, 88th percentile jumps, and 80th percentile bench. Overall, he had a 9.72 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 38 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 1 pass defensed, and 2 forced fumbles. Adebayo fires off the ball fast, and he has very strong hands that he uses to get into the chest and under the pads of taller offensive linemen, so he uses the leverage created by being the lowest man really well. In addition, he's really good at getting off of blocks in the run game, which is surprising considering his frame, but he does a good job there. And he was used very versatilely at Northwestern. He played as a stand-up edge, he played as a 5 technique, a 4-eye, a 3 technique, so he was moved all over the place for Northwestern. The question about him at the next level is, where will he play? Where's an NFL team going to settle on him? I'm not sure he has the flexibility or length to be an edge rusher, and I don't know if he has the anchor or the functional strength and the weight to sustain playing inside. Additionally, he disrupts more than he finishes in plays. He's a pretty poor tackler. Overall, I think he projects to the next level to a 4-3 team who likes to use NASCAR packages where they can kick Adebayo inside on pass rushing downs and get the most out of his speed rushing against heavier interior offensive linemen. Felix Uzoma is the 59th ranked player on my big board and my 10th ranked edge rusher in this class. He was a 3-star prospect coming out of high school and became a 2-year starter for Kansas State, where he was a 3rd-team All-American in 2022. He is 6'3", which is 43rd percentile, weighs 255 pounds, which is 28th percentile, and is 21 years old. In 2022, he recorded 46 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 1 pass defense, 2 forced fumbles, and 46 pressures. He is used in multiple alignments at Kansas State, but he's best when used outside the offensive tackle, where he can threaten to use his speed to run around the arc. He's very bendy around the edge, and so offensive tackles have to respect that, and then he has a lot of tools in the toolbox as a pass rusher to get back inside. He has a Euro step, a spin move, a rip move, and a 2-hand punch that are all found on his film. He also has excellent lateral mobility, and that's visible when he's used as a looper to loop back inside of offensive guards and tackles. As for his weaknesses, he lacks the strength to take on double teams, and so this isn't a player that you want to move inside very often because he can get washed out of the play. When runs go outside, he can set the edge in the run game at times, but other times he allows the offensive tackle to get into his chest, and once that happens, he's unable to shed blocks. He also has a lack of balance that sees him put on the ground a lot by offensive tackles in those situations. And he's just average size. He's below average weight. He could probably use some pounds put on at the next level. Overall, I think he's fairly versatile in a scheme fit at the next level. He could be used as a 3-4 outside linebacker or a 4-3 defensive end. Tyler Scott is the number 58 player on my big board and my 9th ranked wide receiver in this class. He is 5'10", which is 9th percentile height, 177 pounds, which is 5th percentile. He ran a 4.44 40, which is 76th percentile, with a 39.5-inch vertical jump, 89th percentile, and he had a 96th percentile broad jump. Overall, he had an 8.57 relative athletic score. At Cincinnati in 2022, he recorded 54 receptions for 899 yards and 9 touchdowns. Scott has the speed to threaten defenders vertically. I think he looks faster on tape than his 40 time was at the combine. And he uses that speed to threaten vertically and then snap routes off into the intermediate areas of the field where he creates separation. He tracks the ball really well downfield and he adjusts to it while it's in the air well. And like I said, he generates separation well. Despite not being the best route runner, that speed is what does it for him. He also has very good rack ability. He was a high school running back, and so when he catches the ball, he turns into a running back on the field, and he's able to make guys miss or run through them. Now, as for his weaknesses, he is small. Again, 9th percentile height, 5th percentile weight, and that could be problematic for him at the next level. He also has drop issues. He has a 10% drop rate on his career in college. And so there's some things he needs to clean up. He needs to keep his footwork consistent in his routes. He needs to not round off his routes. A lot of times he will round those off, which leads to passes being undercut and intercepted. The question for me is, where does he play? I think he is slot size, but he's not a good enough route runner to play in the slot, and he rarely played in the slot in college. I'm not sure he's fast enough to be your deep threat guy, so he's sort of a tweener. He'll fit somewhere in a slot or a Z receiver in a scheme, but the team that drafts him is going to have to figure that out and put him in the best place for him to succeed. Hayden Hooker is the number 57 player on my big board and my 6th ranked quarterback in this draft class. He is 6'3" and weighs 217 pounds and was a 37-game starter at the collegiate level. In 2022, he completed 69.6% of his passes for 3,135 yards, which was 9.5 yards per attempt, and threw 27 touchdowns versus only 2 interceptions. He also rushed for 430 yards and 5 touchdowns. In his final year in college, he led the SEC in passing efficiency, total offense, completion percentage, and yards per attempt. Hooker has good but not elite arm strength, and he's highly accurate throwing the football. He throws a beautiful deep ball that was the staple of the Tennessee offense. He has very clean mechanics, which is usually one of the perks of having a father who also played quarterback. He possesses the dual threat skill set that teams crave at the quarterback position, and he has consistently improved year over year throughout his college career. However, he excelled in a vertical spread tempo offense that simply doesn't translate to the NFL level. He has almost no experience going through his progressions and will have a big adjustment moving to the next level of competition. And for as much of a scrambling threat as he isn't really a threat to throw the ball once he breaks the pocket, completing only 5 passes in 2022 once breaking the pocket. Once his initial read isn't there, he goes into scramble mode and he just drops his eyes and he only looks to run. Hooker is also recovering from an ACL injury sustained in late November. So not only will he be 25 years old on draft night, he may miss the majority of his rookie season rehabbing an ACL injury. I think Hayden Hooker is an ideal backup for a team that uses their QB extensively in the running game, where if called upon, you can use his rushing ability to maybe make it through a couple of games while you wait to get your starter back, and hopefully he develops his passing game along the way. Josh Downs is the number 56 player on my big board and my 8th ranked wide receiver in this draft class. He was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school with a background in both basketball and track. He had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons with 2 different quarterbacks at North Carolina. In 2021, he was a second-team All-American. He is 21 years old, 5'9", 171 pounds with 30 3/8 inch arms, so he's very small. He ran a 4.48 40, which is 63rd percentile, but his 10-yard split was 93rd percentile. He had a 38.5 inch vertical, and he has an 8.98 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 94 receptions for 1,029 yards, which is 10.9 yards per reception, and 11 touchdowns. Downs is a very good route runner who is ultra smooth coming in and out of his breaks. He does a great job of manipulating defenders throughout the route stem to keep them off balance and guessing. Also, for a guy his size, he's surprisingly good in contested catch situations. He plays bigger than his size, and he's very good with the ball in his hands after the catch. He can make guys miss, and he can turn underneath throws into big gains. He also brings value as a kick returner and a punt returner, which is really important for day 2 receivers so they can get on the field early in their career. However, he does struggle to release against press coverage, and he was largely protected from that in college by alignment. He took 84% of his snaps in the slot, something I would expect to continue in the NFL. And he's just small, he's tiny. He has a small catch radius, and he also has some issues with drops. I think he projects best to the next level as a slot receiver. You want to put him inside, give him routes with two-way goes where he can use his quickness, his smoothness in and out of breaks, and his acceleration to catch the ball and make plays underneath. Cody Mock is the number 55 player on my big board and my 8th ranked offensive lineman in this class. He walked on to North Dakota State as a 221-pound tight end, and then transitioned to offensive tackle, packing on 80 pounds, and developed into one of the top left tackles in the country. Now, he is a 6th-year senior, so he is an older prospect at 24 years old. He is 6'5", 302 pounds, and he has 5th percentile arm length, so he is undersized, but we'll talk about that more in just a moment. He has excellent lateral agility with 93rd percentile 3-cone, 84th percentile shuttle, and he also had 82nd percentile on the bench. Overall, he has a 9.32 relative athletic score. I think he has really good athleticism, but he's got short arms, and I do think that may require him to switch inside to offensive guard at the next level. Fortunately, he does have experience there. He took 16 whole snaps at left and right guard in college, so there will be a learning curve there, but excellent movement skills. He consistently works to the second level in the run game, and so you could use him as a puller in that way from guard. He wins more with technique and positioning than power, and he has that strength, he just doesn't harness it all well. So I think he's probably best fit for a zone rushing team, at least early, while you iron that out. As for his weaknesses, he has an average anchor and pass protection. He really struggles to deal with power rushers. A lot of it is due to poor footwork that you could probably correct. He's a heel clicker as he comes out of his stance, and that's something that he's going to have to work on. It gets him off balance at times. He also has poor hand placement when he throws his hands, and it leads to a lot of holding penalties. He gets outside the defensive lineman's frame, and he's drawn a lot of flags. I think he's probably going to be a guard at the next level. I don't think you draft him as a tackle. You draft him with the idea that you're going to transition him to guard, which could be a little problematic for an older prospect, but if he hits, he has the athleticism to become a really good player. Gerald Dexter is the number 54 player on my big board and my 5th ranked interior defensive lineman in this class. He didn't play football until his junior year of high school, but in his senior year he'd racked up 18 sacks. He was a 4-year starter on the basketball team, and he qualified for state as a discus thrower in track and field. He is 6'6", which is 94th percentile, 310 pounds, and ran a 4.88 40-yard dash, which is 91st percentile. However, his 1.81 10-yard split was only 20th percentile. He's very athletic with a 72nd percentile vertical, 76th percentile broad jump, and a 68th percentile 3-cone. However, he only got 15th percentile on the bench press. Overall, his relative athletic score is a 9.7. In 2022, Dexter had 55 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 1 interception, and 1 pass breakup. He is very big and very fast with really good change of direction skills. Guys at 6'6", 310 pounds simply shouldn't be able to move that fast. He also has really good upper body control. He slides through gaps well. He's able to turn his shoulders and get through the A gap or the B gap when he's rushing the passer. However, if the speed rush doesn't win, he doesn't really have a good pass rush plan. And that's problematic because he's frequently slow off the ball, and so that doesn't allow his speed to be used to its fullest potential. He needs to work on snap timing and counter moves. He's also constantly displaced in the run game if he's double teamed. He lacks the strength to drop an anchor against those run plays. At the snap, he raises up and he surrenders leverage to offensive linemen instead of firing out at the ball. He's going to have to work on some of those technical aspects to become a better pass rusher, to become better anchoring against the run so a team in the NFL can trust him to be a 3-down player week in and week out. Will McDonald IV is the number 53 player on my big board and my 9th ranked edge rusher in this class. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and became a 5-year contributor for Iowa State. He had double-digit sacks in both 2020 and 2021 and was all Big 12 first team in 2021. In 2022, he had a substantial production drop-off, which we'll talk about in a moment, but he did still manage to make third-team All-American. He is 6'4", 239 pounds, which is only 3rd percentile weight. He'll be almost 24 years old on draft night. He also was 90th percentile in arm length and 98th percentile in the broad jump. Overall, he had a 9.66 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 36 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 4 passes defensed, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 forced fumble. He is a highly explosive rusher. He's got an explosive first step off of the edge, and he does a good job of bending around the arc, dipping under offensive tackles. He's also got some nice hand counters, particularly a spin move that you will see time and time again on his tape as soon as offensive tackles start to overset to compensate for his speed. In the run game, he does a good job at keeping his eyes in the backfield and using his length to swipe at ball carriers that come his direction. However, as you would suspect from his 3rd percentile weight, he doesn't really have any ability to rush with power. There is no speed to power move with him. It's all finesse rushing, and he has a limited ability to anchor against the run. If he's on the field on rundowns, you have to get him outside the tackle to avoid any sort of double team situations. He can win in space. He won't win in a tight area. Iowa State used him as a 4-eye technique that's shaded just inside the tackle this year. And that's just a poor usage of him. It's why his production dropped. I think he projects best to the next level as a 3-4 stand-up rusher or as a sub-package pass rush specialist who can win off of the edge in space. Jalen Hyatt is the number 52 player on my big board and my 7th ranked wide receiver in this class. He was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school who didn't do much in his first 2 seasons at Tennessee before breaking out in 2020 and winning the Biletnikoff Award. The crown jewel on his season was a 6-catch, 207-yard performance for 5 touchdowns against Alabama. He is 21 years old, 6 feet tall, 176 pounds, which is 5th percentile weight, ran a 4.4 40, and vertical jumped 40 inches, which is 92nd percentile. Overall, he had an 8.73 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 67 receptions for 1,267 yards at 18.9 yards per reception, with 15 touchdowns. Hyatt is extremely explosive and athletic. His 4.4 40 time doesn't do him justice. He was 2nd in the NCAA with 8 touchdowns of 20-plus yards. He has very good hands and great ball tracking ability, and he is willing to go and take hits over the middle to make receptions. He used his deep threat ability to open up underneath areas where he is a threat with the ball in his hands. He had 8 yards after the catch per reception. However, he is very small and he lacks physicality. He's also transitioning from an extreme spread offense that just doesn't translate to the NFL, and it's the only thing he produced in college, so there is some concern there. He is not a well-rounded route runner, had a very limited route tree, going vertical and getting the ball quickly underneath, and he never had to worry about being pressed at the line. He was protected from that by Josh Heupel's offense at Tennessee. I think he projects best to the next level as a slot receiver, somebody that you can move around and get free releases. You can use him as a deep threat, although you are going to have to see him get off of press coverage, something that maybe he can do, but we never really had to see it in college. And so Jalen Hyatt is a very exciting, dynamic prospect, but there are some definite size concerns about him projecting to the NFL. Rashod Rice is the number 51 player on my big board and my 6th ranked wide receiver in this class. He is just over 23 years old, 6'1", 204 pounds, and ran a 4.51 40-yard dash with a 1.49 10-yard split. He also had a 41-inch vertical leap, which was 95th percentile, and he had a 9.52 relative athletic score. In 2022, he had 96 receptions for 1,355 yards, which is 14.1 yards per reception, and 10 touchdowns. Rice has just average speed. His 40 time was 51st percentile, but he has elite acceleration, which we can see from his 10-yard split being 93rd percentile. So he's going to get up to his top speed quickly, although he's not necessarily a home run threat. He is very good at tracking the ball downfield, and he has great body control to go and get off-target passes. He's also a really good blocker out on the perimeter, so he can be a plus for you in the wide receiver screen game, in the outside running game. He can go stick his cornerback and take him out of the play. And he will routinely make defenders miss after the catch, and he can rip off big games. So he is elusive, even though he doesn't have top-end speed. As for his weaknesses, he ran a very limited route tree at SMU. Now, I think he's a good route runner with what he was given. He just wasn't asked to do much, and so you have to ask the question, was he only given a few routes because that's all he could do, or was it just how the offense was structured? I tend to think he is a better route runner than people might think. He also makes highlight reel catches, but then he'll have routine drops. He just lacks consistency game to game, and even snap to snap. And so that consistency has to come up. And I think with NFL coaching, they can do a better job with both the route running aspects, expanding that route tree, and the routine drops. As for his projection to the next level, I think he is a versatile possession receiver. I think you could put him a little bit of everywhere and move him around and get advantageous matchups. And that wraps up this ranking video detailing my number 51 through 60 prospects in the NFL draft. Next time, we will break into my top 50 and start to get into the top talent in this draft. So if you're enjoying this series, please subscribe on YouTube, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. You can also follow me on Twitter at @halfandhalf_TPL if you're not a YouTube person, where you will see these videos tweeted out one by one every day leading up to the NFL draft.